Hello and welcome to Bothering Strangers 30 Minutes Max Edition with Max Hearing. I'm Max Hearing, and my guest today is a fitness trainer and a fitness influencer. My guest today is Sam Gwaz. Sam, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. I've been seeing on your Instagram that you have a dog.
Yes, she's my pride and joy, and I heavily take advantage of her cuteness on my social media.
Yeah, no, it's evident. How long have you had her?
So Griffey is 5.5 years old, and I got her when I was in grad school, which some would say is not the best time to get a dog,
Probably not, no.
but I argue differently for sure.
I'm torn on that. I saw a lot of people in college get dogs who shouldn't have had dogs.
It totally depends on your lifestyle, because I think if you're off being, a college kid partying and doing whatever, maybe not the best choice. But I was in grad school, I was working, I was studying, I wasn't doing anything else. So for me, it was the mental break that I needed from my studies and kind of the other stuff that was just perfect for me. So
Dogs have been saving people in this pandemic too.
oh yeah, I would definitely say Griffey's been saving me for 5.5 years. So I can definitely give her credit there. And I think in general, dogs keep us super active. They give us that emotional connection that is just constant. You don't have to work for it. It's just there, which is obviously significant in this kind of time, this kind of day and age, but also just in general.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. So you're a trainer,
Mhm.
but you do it. I saw it. You do it online. Is that like a pandemic thing?
So I've been a virtual nutrition coach trainer for actually a couple of years. However, it was very convenient during, the breakout of COVID and all of that, because I was already doing everything online. Everything I was doing was set up to be successful virtually. So for me, I kind of branched away from the one-on-one like personal training side. I do write training programs, but it's not a big part of my day-to-day. The biggest part of my day-to-day is really the nutrition side of health and wellness, and that's really where my credentials are. My education background comes more from the nutrition side than it does training. However, I think that fitness is a really important component to a healthy lifestyle. So I integrate that, and I do have some certifications there too, but I try and stay mostly in my lane with nutrition and make that more my focus.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about the nutrition, because on your own Instagram, like you've shown like before and after pictures
Mhm.
where you've actually gained weight in the after pictures to kind of just show that like being small isn't necessarily like the best body type. So with your background, trainer, nutritionist, certified, everything, how did you come to realize like what we've been told about like losing weight isn't necessarily the case?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up just with this like constant pursuit of being smaller. My sister was smaller than I was always. My mom was smaller than I was growing up. And it was just one of those things that I saw in media and I saw as like, this is the pinnacle of beauty. And I really wanted to be beautiful. I wanted to be attractive. I wanted to be well liked. And I just figured that that was the way to do it. So I had this very narrow focus of what health, wellness, and beauty looked like. And I was so obsessed. I went into college studying nutrition. I got my master's in it, really from a selfish standpoint of I want to know what it takes to accomplish this standard of beauty. Like I wanted that for myself. And in the pursuit, I found bodybuilding. I found that physique that I thought I was looking for. And yet I was still so dissatisfied. And having that background in education, in nutrition, and in training, I realized that really, like, at the end of the day, that wasn't healthy for me. Like, I had that awareness of what I was doing to my body. Although from the outside, it was that pinnacle of what I was trying to achieve. but on the inside, like I knew that that wasn't what was healthy for me. And not just from a physical standpoint either, but from a mental capacity. I was struggling with body confidence. I was struggling with the social elements of living the best life possible. I was scared to go out to dinner. I was fearful of overeating, constantly under like this huge amount of stress, thinking that eating outside of that comfort zone was going to lead back to the girl that I was in terms of being super insecure, wanting to lose weight. And even though I'd reached this quote unquote pinnacle of beauty in terms of like being super shredded, being super small, I still wanted to change a million things about myself. So, and I still wanted to lose weight, or I still wanted to build muscle. It was never enough. So mentally and physically, I came to the standstill of like, well, what's next? Because I've lost weight, I've gained weight, I've lost weight, I've done it a million times. And this can't be what life is all about. Like there has to be something else that is going to be more sustainable and just healthier mentally and physically for me. So that's really where that pursuit started to come from, was okay, so if this isn't my best, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And not having a clear picture in my head of what exactly that was really was the key to unlocking this endless potential of what that could be. When I was growing up, like you just really wanted to fit in. And I really wanted to fit in a lot of ways, like not just the way that I looked, but in the things that I did. So like not eating as much as a guy when you go out to dinner, or ordering a salad at dinner, you know, little things like you just kind of pick up as like, oh, that's a social norm of what to do when you're a female, which is kind of fucked up. But
let's talk about the influencing.
yeah.
I've seen sponsored ads and affiliate marketing and all the regular influencing stuff. So the question I always ask is, do you get like hate for it?
I think to a certain extent, people can feel frustrated on the other side of like, oh, this person's always promoting this, that, and the other, and they don't love to see it. And I can totally understand that. If you're consuming somebody's content and you're not there to know, or you're not there to care about the products they use, or how they make their money, then it can be frustrating. And I think a lot of people, and myself included, like if I'm following somebody on social media and I just see that they're constantly churning out ads, it feels very disingenuous. So I only work with companies that I love and that connect with me, not just on a professional level, but also personal level. So for me, working with companies that are very in tune with health, and not just physical, but mental health, focusing on empowering women, focusing on, body positivity and diversity, like those are very important to me. So anytime I can combine my professional with my personal, it's always a win. So for me, it's how I make a living to a certain extent, but it's also a big, like, I don't want to say luxury, but it is definitely something that I love doing. Like I love connecting with these brands that I've been a big fan of for a really long time. But I would say very seldom, like my social media is such a positive space. Like you would be shocked. Like you would think that I got like negativity every day, and I just don't. And I'm scared for the day that that changes. Like I'm almost like, I need to stop. Like I don't need to grow anymore, because these people that are here already are just so nice. So I don't want to like get into a place where like I'm constantly fending off haters or whatever.
After this podcast,
I'm gonna get a lot, aren't I? They're gonna be like, "Oh, we're coming for you.
yeah,
We heard it."
it's a very popular podcast. So
Yeah, people are gonna come for me for sure. But yeah, no, I really don't get a lot of negativity. I think that when I do sponsored content or I talk about certain things, I don't think that it performs, or I know that it doesn't perform as well, because it doesn't always connect with people and on a wide scale, which is totally fine. But I love being able to work with these brands, and creating that content is really fun for me. So It is what it is, you know?
I want to talk about this. I wouldn't call it a trend in modeling, but we're seeing on like magazine covers and then certain places like a lot of women that are medically they're obese.
Yep.
And it gets a lot of mixed reactions. A lot of people are like, yeah, like that's good they're doing it. And then certain like medically like that's not healthy. Like, so what's your take on all that?
So my take is you cannot look at somebody and judge their health based on their appearance. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So when I was at my leanest, when I had like my abs were showing, like XYZ, I was by no means the healthiest version of myself. I was probably, if not the worst, like one of the worst states my body has ever been in. I hormonally, like for so many reasons, like I was not healthy. But I think you could look at me and you would say, oh, like that's the pinnacle of health. Like she is what I see on a magazine, and I automatically assume that chick is healthy, right? And then, you look at somebody who is even like at my weight right now, which is probably a solid 50 pounds heavier than what I used to look like, right? And you could say, oh, like, she could be healthier. She could lose a few pounds. I wouldn't say like she looks by definition the pinnacle of health. And I'm technically, if you use BMI, like I'm technically overweight, obese. And again, like there's a lot of facts and figures that are so irrelevant to defining health and wellness. And simply by looking at someone, and yes, like your body fat percentage is one indicator of so many of what health is actually defined by. So if you're somebody who exercises, and I think when we think of the term obese, or we look at somebody who maybe is carrying more weight on their body, we automatically assume things about that person. So we assume that they don't exercise. We assume that they don't eat right. We assume a lot of things that actually matter when we're defining somebody's health. Because if you are eating a healthy, well-rounded diet, if you are exercising, you are doing two things that are so crucial to your health and wellness that maybe somebody who is of a healthier weight or looks a little bit more health conscious that maybe isn't doing those things. And actually, your internal health is stronger than the person who isn't exercising but technically looks the part, if that makes sense. So really, when it comes to your health and wellness, the bigger factors is what are you doing for your health and wellness, not how do you look, right? So for me, like that's a really, really important point. And I think that I've seen a lot of people argue about it, and like what you're specifically talking about, it's really interesting. I think it was maybe less than a month ago or about a month ago. What was the magazine? Oh, now I'm blanking on it. I think it was
Vogue.
like
It's always one of them.
it was it was a UK version of this magazine, maybe Women's Health or something, and they had probably 5 different women, maybe 10 of varying sizes, weights, even careers. Like they had a professional athlete on their cover who, didn't look like a typical model on a magazine. And the point is, it's not your weight that defines your health. It's all the things that you're doing for your body that make the biggest impact. And when I was in grad school, and I think there still is this initiative of exercise is medicine, because when you move your body, you're going to be healthy. You're going to be healthier. It's going to make the biggest difference when it comes to preventing health issues moving forward. But assuming that somebody isn't taking care of their body because of their weight is really, it's like a fat phobic policy that we've created in our society.
Wow, I never thought about that, but
It was
it
a lot.
tracks. It tracks though.
Totally. I'm very passionate about this because I just cannot stand when people assume things about other people. And it doesn't have anything to do necessarily with size, but if you're assuming that because, and I don't live in a what you would say a larger body, but I certainly get judged a lot for the way that I look, especially working in the fitness industry. But if you're going to judge somebody for the way that they look instead of the actions that they take to take care of themselves, that says a lot more about you and how you see the world than it does about that person.
Yeah, it is more a reflection on yourself.
Totally. Well, and most things are. Typically, we have
Yeah, no, that's also true. So
underlying kind of stereotypes and subconscious thoughts about other people in the world and just based on our own experiences.
when you talk about body types, like some people just run bigger, some people just run smaller. I don't know the medical terminal or the physical terminology for it, but
Yeah, so there's multiple different like classical like body types, endomorph, ectomorph, mesomorph, and that plays more into like what types and styles of even like athletic performance best suit you. So are you somebody who's more like type 1 muscle fiber, which means that you're more into like endurance, so a lot thinner, smaller muscle fibers than somebody who's type 2 and might be better at strength, power, movements. So I'm definitely more like the type 2. So I have an easier time putting on muscle than somebody who's more predominantly type 1, in terms of like muscle size, muscle belly size. And in terms of performance, like I'm much more suited for that strength power than somebody who's more type 1. So that's going to play a role, especially when it comes to abdominal definition. If you're more type 1, putting on muscle size, is particularly on your core and midsection, is going to be a bit more of a challenge, which means that you have to train heavier in those things, but also like probably get leaner and be leaner than somebody with my genetic makeup and predominantly type 2 muscle fibers.
yeah, that's why aesthetic bothers me.
Well, and it's so easy to get caught up in I want to look like this person. And I think that was a big kind of like hindering factor for me growing up, was I was constantly trying to look like other people instead of taking advantage of my genetic makeup and really like honing in on like what makes me special and what advantages I have, instead of looking at everything that I had as a disadvantage, like my height or muscle size. Like I saw those as disadvantages, but now like those are the things that make me different and special and beautiful in my own unique way. So instead of trying to be like other people, I just want to be the absolute best version of myself as much as possible. So I think that's a really big mental and physical shift for me, is instead of, oh, like I need to run all the time, I want to look like a runner, or I'm going to follow Beyonce's workout plan because I want to look like Beyonce. Like, I think to a certain degree, you can learn from the things that other people are implementing, but it should never be to look like that person. It should be to just adopt the best and healthiest relationship with food, exercise, while being the best version of yourself possible.
Well, you touched on this earlier, like for a little bit, but it's like when I mean you were always trying to be smaller when you were like a kid, a teenager, whatever. But what did you mentally have to go through to be like, this is my body type, this is how I should look, this is like, this is how much I should weigh, all that stuff.
So even I really don't like consider weight much anymore. I think that that's it's a little irrelevant. I'm not like, oh, this is my happy weight. Like, I don't know what, that doesn't really exist for me. And so I don't give it much thought or much emphasis. But really a pivotal moment for me was when I was competing in bodybuilding. And I don't know if you know much about bodybuilding, but there's a bunch of different categories. There's fitness, there's bikini, there's figure, there's physique, and then there's like classic bodybuilding. So there's all these different categories. And on your kind of far left, so when you go like bikini is kind of your classic like model look, like pageant look almost, and it's accelerated beyond that, but that was like the initial intention, was it was very health minded and you're supposed to look like a little bit more soft, not as like shredded, not as muscular. And that was initially the category I wanted to compete in. Like I wanted to look like that girl. But the more I really got into it, I had to realize that that was not where I was going to be successful. And for me to be competitive in that category, I would have had to lose a lot of muscle, which would have been excruciating. Like it would have been very, very difficult. Like I would have to basically be incredibly malnourished because losing muscle like that is not healthy. And at the rate of competing and all of that, like it just wouldn't have been the best move for me from a health standpoint. So that really challenged me to accept where I was going to be the most successful and to take advantage of the part of myself that I like had an advantage. Like I, grew up playing sports, so I had built a pretty solid base of muscle, but then, getting into the weight room and doing all these different things, like I found that I really thrived in an environment where I was able to challenge myself in my strength, in my power, in being a better athlete, which I actually really enjoyed much more than endless hours of cardio trying to transform my body into what it was not engineered to look like. It was very much playing against my kind of advantages. So that was a pivotal moment for me and just kind of accepting like, hey, like you have this advantage, like you're strong and you can be really powerful. So start leaning into that instead of trying to fit this mold of what you thought that you've wanted to look like for almost your entire life. So that was really transformative for me. After that, I think I struggled with weight gain for a while just because we're taught for most of our lives that weight gain is a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I struggled getting out of that competing phase, out of being that lean. And I did for a long time, constantly feeling like I needed to diet again. And it took a while for me to be okay with not seeing my abs. It took a long time for me to be okay with seeing my face a little bit rounder because I was so accustomed to that. And it really was just time and patience, and also shifting my focus away from this obsession I had with staring at my body, whether it was in the gym, looking in the mirror, like I was obsessed. And I think that that was really mentally fatiguing for me. So focusing on other things, because there's so many other valuable aspects of life that can get lost in your pursuit for physical change. So for me, that was relationships. It was being successful in my job, like being a good coach. It was focusing on my mental health, mental well-being. There was all these factors like wanting to travel that were maybe not as conducive to being the leanest version of myself, because that meant I had to sacrifice a lot. But by sacrificing being the leanest version of myself, I gained back all of these other things that I had sacrificed in the pursuit of that.
I've definitely done a fair amount of staring at myself in the gym because
Totally.
there are mirrors all around you.
Yeah. And just imagine spending 2-3 hours in the gym every single day. Yeah,
It's bad. There's been a lot of flexing in the gym.
totally. And
A lot.
it's hard not to. I mean, you should be watching your form. So, there's certainly a positive point to that, but
I have to do more of that though. I was definitely surprised when I was like just kind of scrolling briefly through Instagram, be like, what's her brand? Like, what's her thing? Obviously fitness, but beyond that. And I saw the photo, the before and after with you, like being like having like the 6-pack being shredded. And then and afterwards I was like, that's not the way you normally see it go.
yeah, totally. Usually it's the opposite. Like, look what I did. I lost all this weight. I'm so happy now. But I think that was my perception of what I thought I needed to be successful in the fitness industry, and also successful in relationships, successful in loving myself. Like that's what I thought success looked like, but it's not what I found. And that was, my experience through my education, my experience through trial and error, trying different things and being open to the possibility that maybe the smallest version of myself isn't going to be the happiest or the healthiest. I think being open to whatever that looks like on you is really important and is what may lead to the most sustainable and most fulfilling years of your life.
Do you find that a lot of women are like afraid of like lifting a weight because they think that they'll
Yeah, totally.
become like the Hulk or something like that?
Totally. All the time.
It's which is it's funny to me because I took nutrition in college and the professor was literally like, women, like you can lift weights, like you don't have nearly as much testosterone as men, so like there's no way you'll
They
lift.
have a tenth the amount of
Yeah,
just
like I think he said like generously speaking, you have like 10% the amount.
yeah,
And it
right.
was like and and what
Capacity to do that is not even there.
no, unless you have like some kind of like abnormality, there's no way it's
Or
there.
you're taking
Or
steroids.
yeah, or literally just taking that happens too. I don't remember when this started, but remember I just like whenever the word thick started kind of rolling around the cosmos, and then everyone started talking about like the seas and all that. I feel like don't you feel like that also had a big impact in how like
I
in
think a positive one.
oh absolutely
Yeah.
confidently a positive one, but just an impact nonetheless.
Yeah, because we live in a fat phobic society that fears the word fat, even though we're the ones who put a negative connotation with that word. It actually doesn't exist already. Like we created a negative connotation with the word fat. So creating another word that's more positive and more widely accepted has only brought more kind of, I think, allowed more people to feel more positively about having fat on their body. I used to fear the word fat like the plague. Like I thought if I ate fat, I would be fat. And if I was fat, then I would be, XYZ. And I struggled with an eating disorder for a long time. And that was one of the things that I worked on with my therapist was this word fat. Like I had such a negative connotation that even when she said the word fat, I would like almost like have a physical reaction to it. And so she was like, okay, well, we're just going to use the word lipid. So like, I remember, because that's just like a synonym, like in terms of like science.
Yeah,
So
no, I know lipids are
yeah,
fats. That's why I
right.
was like, what?
So we replaced it with that, and we didn't really get back to it. But like I remember I was 18 at the time, and that was something that really stuck out to me. It was like, oh, okay, like this word I have such a negative reaction to. Like, what's another word I can use that maybe I can see as more positive? And I think thick has kind of done the same thing.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is fun.
It was just how often do you do podcasts?
Oh, like maybe one a month or something like
Huh,
that, I would say.
not too many. Okay, cool.
But this was definitely one of the most different from all the other podcasts. I feel like a lot of times, at least in my niche, they're all kind of the same. So I find myself repeating myself a lot. So this was really fresh and new.
Well, I was afraid when you said different was a bad thing, but it sounds good. It sounds
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
I am on Instagram at the Sam Plan, and my DMs are always open. If you shoot me a DM or you have questions or whatever, yeah, I'm happy to field them there.
The Sam Plan on Instagram. What's your website?
Thesamplan.co.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was something like that. So the Sam Plan on Instagram or the samplan.com on the internet. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for letting me bother you.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. This was really special. So thank you.
I tried to come at it with a different angle because I know for in your industry of fitness and influencing, I'm sure you're getting a lot of the same.
Yeah, you would be right.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for listening. Follow Bothering Exchanges on Instagram, and everyone stay safe.